top of that, you have Daredevil and other shows.
So we're back to the releasing 75 things each year.
I'm not against it. I was never against it. I was just against the directionlessness of it all. Because we were supposedly in the multiverse saga, but then like only like 5 projects actually incorporated the multiverse, while everything else is introducing brand new characters or
Filling in gaps.
or filling
Like
in
Black
gaps.
Widow is a gap filler from the previous. That's what I thought. All right, let's get into it. Welcome back to Capes, Cowls, and Conversations with Tim Neal and my son Cameron. We're here to talk about all things comics, comic books, comic book movies, TV, Comic-Con. Am I missing something? Video games?
Yeah, video games too. Like, oh, that's actually really fun because James Gunn is going to be incorporating DC stuff into video games, canon-wise.
I guess we'll see.
I'm excited.
We'll see how that works when people don't play them. The same way people don't go to watch his movies.
Guardians Volume 3 would beg to differ.
He hasn't. Nobody, not him.
And Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad would beg to
Not
differ.
him, but nobody goes to see DC movies. So who's going to buy DC video games? Nobody. Gross. Stop whispering.
I'm not going to whisper. I mean, I'm not going to. Well, I'm going to whisper occasionally because it's fun. But, yeah, I'm going to play DC video games. I like video games.
Well, I know that for sure. So, a couple of news bits to cover. Kevin Feige apparently has come out and said what he's most excited for. I'm not sure if you align. You tell me. Kevin Feige says, I'm most excited for the Fantastic Four to come out.
He's the same guy who said that he was like Deadpool Wolverine's going to change everything, and it really didn't, in my personal opinion. So I don't know. I don't. Fantastic Four, I'm excited for it. I'm also thinking it's going to be like it's kind of got really high expectations. So gonna have to keep those lowered so your disappointment isn't as.
I just think maybe the Fantastic Four is hard to do. We've seen a couple of shots at it. And to me, it's just hard to pull off a great Fantastic Four movie. So I'm not sure if he can do it any better than the last attempts. But I have hope because we do have a 30 movie and TV show universe built out of Kevin Feige and others' imagination, so maybe they can do a better job with it. I have a hope, but I do feel like Fantastic Four might just be the hardest one to pull off and do well.
I think it'd be more fun. This is after me watching Superman and Lois. I think it'd be more fun if Fantastic Four was a TV show about a family rather than a movie. But at the same time, you can only do so much with big name actors.
Fair point.
Yeah, I mean, like
so then what is your I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say with Pedro Pascal, I mean, The Last of Us only gets like eight episodes, right?
Something like that, 8 or 10, yeah.
8 to 10 episodes per season. So if you were to do a Fantastic Four series, it would be really short every season, and I'm kind of sick of that. I really hate that shows are going to like 8. Like they should use the amount of episodes they need. And sometimes they're either way too short or way too long.
So see, Marvel's doing exactly what you want because Daredevil's getting what it needs to tell the story.
Yes, that is something I think it needs. I don't think Fantastic Four should be a movie. I think it's gonna be either too short or too long.
Okay.
We'll see, depending on the story they tell.
Okay.
So
then, what are you most looking forward to that's coming out soon? Superman.
Yeah.
You're looking forward to Superman more than any of the Marvel stuff that's coming out.
I'm excited for the Marvel stuff. I am. I think I'm most excited for Thunderbolts, if I'm being completely honest with you, just because of all the returning characters, Bucky Barnes is the best character so far. He has changed without his character being annoyingly damaged in some way. Like Scarlet Witch got changed, and she changed drastically between two projects, and then she, quote unquote, dies. Whereas Bucky has changed. He's no longer the Winter Soldier, but he's still Bucky in a way. He's not the same person from Captain America: The First Avenger, but he's also not the Winter Soldier anymore. But he's not. Yeah, but I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that you make that comment about Scarlet Witch because you tend to be the comic purist, and she is following a comic arc pretty well. She's not going way off base there. So
no, but after reading this script, the leaked script for Doctor Strange 2, I would have preferred that story over what we got.
Tell me what it was.
It was her training under Strange at Comertage, or like at the. But she was supposed to be with Strange and with America, and then she was supposed to make a twist villain turn at the end where she kills Nightmare in a pretty messed up way, and then also I think Wong was supposed to die in that movie, which I would have been okay with because I'm kind of tired of that character.
Yeah, I don't like his comic relief turn.
She-Hulk really turned me off of Wong pretty quickly.
Like, I liked Wong in Doctor Strange because even though he was comic relief, he wasn't campy comic relief.
He wasn't dumb.
And I think they made him dumb. Yeah. They went from he's funny to he's dumb. And I hate that they did that with him.
Okay, tangent. I watched Thor Ragnarok again, and Korg is actually funny in there. Like
same thing.
He's really funny, but he's not dumb. Like he's just kind of funny.
But really, I mean, I'm just gonna say Taiti, whatever, whatever his name is, Taika. I knew what his name was. Taika. That's his thing. Like Thor went from serious to too serious to watch in Thor 2 to kind of dumb in Thor 3 to absolutely the dumbest person on the planet in Thor 4, and that was all Taika. It's his kind of humor is dumb, senseless humor. I don't like it at all. I don't like what he did with the character, and of course he plays Korg, so it's terrible.
Oh, it's funny because there's a comment from Korg where he's like, my mom's boyfriend, something like that, and then it's completely turned into just a random joke now because in Thor: Love and Thunder, apparently the only way you could give birth as one of his species is if you have a male on male relationship.
That's weird.
Yeah, okay. That doesn't make sense, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I think he was just trying to push the boundaries of how dumb and how offensive he could get with Love and Thunder, which is sad because it feels like he took Thor and made him watchable with Ragnarok. I know it's not your favorite, but compared to the second one, at least Ragnarok was watchable, and he took it and made it almost too unwatchable with how far he went with Love and Thunder. It was really, really bad. I know we at least agree on that. Thor 2 was The Dark World was one of the worst movies ever made.
Heavily disagree, but that's also because I think Thor: The Dark World knew when to slow down. Like, for instance, Loki's fake out death is one of my favorite scenes in the.
It's the only good thing in the movie. There's nothing else worth watching in the whole movie.
His mom's funeral. Dude, the way they handle that, Loki is sitting in the cell and he's like got a vision of him that like looks cleaned up and whatever. And
yeah, I know.
He's supposed to seem strong and he's trying to intimidate Thor, and then Thor's just like, dude, drop the act.
I know, but like, that's not so that good. That's not so that
good.
great of a scene.
What?
It's not. And honestly, other than the Loki death fake out, Nothing else in that movie is watchable. It's garbage.
I think
it's
the
complete garbage.
The only couple things I didn't really like is Selvig's crazy turn after Avengers.
Yes.
Selvig's crazy turn was a little weird. It was a little out of left field. And then Darcy kind of did get on my nerves by the end of the movie. But WandaVision kind of fixed it.
WandaVision fixed Darcy for me, for sure.
So I didn't bug me as much. Natalie Portman is the only thing in that movie that I was like, I can kind of tell that she doesn't want to be here. Like,
well, sure.
Yeah, like you could tell that she was just kind of like, after the first one, she knew she was coming back for the contract, and she didn't like, I guess, something about, I think if I remember correctly, it's something about sexism or something in the workplace or whatever.
Who knows?
I don't remember the full details. I'd have to go look it up again. But she didn't want to be there, and you can kind of see it.
Well, honest to God, it's not her kind of movie. If you go back through her portfolio of movies, it was never her kind of movie. I'm not really sure why she ever signed up for it, except a paycheck, because it is not her kind of movie. But that's okay. We did take a big tangent there. In other news, James Gunn once again telling people, back off, stop questioning what I'm doing. He's looking at the internet and he's saying, I see all these rumors about what's going on, but you don't know what's going on unless I'm saying it. Don't believe it.
Yeah, I think people need to chill out on the Zack Snyder front when it comes to like letting a new universe come in. Like, let it breathe. Give it a chance. Like, it's been a while since the Zack Snyder DC movies come out. Like, the last one was Justice League, the remake. And then before that, it was Justice League, the crap one. So
I don't know. Aquaman fits in there too. Aquaman 2, which was trash.
James Wan. First of all, it was James Wan. Secondly, it was really
It's part of that universe, though.
Oh, well, yeah, but
and it was trash, just like the rest of the universe.
I wouldn't say Snyder was. I mean, Snyder was making the Justice League movies, but you wouldn't go and say the MCU was fronted by Joss Whedon, right? Because he did the first two Avengers movies. You wouldn't go in and say that was the Whedon verse. Like, Zack Snyder was making a significant amount of movies in that universe, but
no, but that's always been the Feige verse. And that's still the Snyderverse. It doesn't matter. That Aquaman character was developed for the Snyderverse, and that movie was trash.
It wasn't bad.
Both of them were trash.
I don't want to get into Aquaman right now. It was
I mean, the fact is, I'm just gonna put it out there. Jason Momoa was a miscast from the beginning. He never should have been Aquaman, because what they're looking at for him now is exactly what he should have been in the first place.
Oh,
Lobo.
Yeah.
That fits him so much better than Aquaman. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I think they did it because the Justice League Unlimited look for Aquaman was the beard and the long hair, and Jason Momoa had the beard and the long hair.
Yeah, but it didn't fit him.
Personality-wise, I don't think it didn't fit him as well.
Lobo's way better for him. I hope that they actually pull that off. I hope James Gunn brings him back, makes him Lobo. I think that'll be a much better casting.
He's also talked about wanting to be Lobo at one point, I think.
That'll be a much better casting.
Much better casting.
There is one more bit of news that I don't know if you saw. Ryan Reynolds is taking on another superhero. Not Deadpool, not Green Lantern. Have you seen it? I'm actually excited about this one. I'm actually really excited about this one.
I'm actually curious.
Ryan Reynolds is bringing to life Mighty Mouse. Yes. It's gonna be as good, at least as good as the Pikachu Pokemon movie. You're making a face, but I actually enjoyed Pikachu.
It was good. Its story was good. The acting was a bit CW level.
It was enjoyable.
It was enjoyable.
It was
fun.
And he's going to bring Mighty Mouse to the screen. I'm actually curious to see what he does with it. So,
is it live action?
I don't have the answer to, is it live action? I would believe it is. I don't see any reason why it would be anything other than live action.
It could be animated.
I don't think so.
Like, Oh my god!
I think like Free Guy.
Oh, I got another tangent. Small tangent.
Okay, here we go. You're
So
really bad about tangents, by the way.
I know I am, but this isn't.
And podcasts need to stay on a topic.
I know. I've got to go back to. But back when you remember that really stupid movie, the Emoji movie.
Oh my god, that was terrible.
Yeah, you know what they passed on it for?
No,
a Popeye remake movie.
I saw someone making possibly a dark Popeye movie, like the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey.
Yeah,
I think there's a dark Popeye movie coming.
There is. I'm interested, but I'm also like, it's kind of a trend that's starting to like grate on me a little bit. But yeah, they passed on a Popeye animated movie made by Sony Animation, and it looks beautiful. Like I've seen the leaked footage for it from way back when, and it looked beautiful, and they passed on it for the Emoji movie.
Oh, well, that was maybe a mistake. I don't know if Popeye's so old that people don't care. Obviously, I mean, you're in your 20s and you kind of care, but I don't know. I don't know if it's so old that people don't care about Popeye anymore. It'd be interesting to see.
Oh yeah. It was the thing that's like, it could have revitalized the brand for a new group of people, and they passed on it for something that screamed of corporate garbage. Like it was gross. That movie was disgusting. I hated it. Like it wasn't disgusting like I say those words, but it was. I mean, in the sense of like it was just a giant walking ad for every single thing you could think of, and I hated that so much.
Okay.
So, but it also, the story was just stupid too.
All right. I think there's one last thing. I noticed yesterday that coming to Northwest Arkansas Comic-Con is the voice of Toga from My Hero Academia. So obviously now, because of people that we know, I have to make that trip to Northwest Arkansas Comic-Con.
I still haven't seen more than
and also the three
episodes.
main characters of Death Note.
Yeah. Yep.
So the three main characters of Death Note will be there. The voice of Toga from My Hero Academia will be there. And so there's a particular person in our family who has demanded that we will now be going to Northwest Arkansas Comic-Con. So look out, Northwest Arkansas Comic-Con. We will be there. The capes, cowls, and conversations folks will be in the crowd, taking pictures, maybe getting some videos, possibly talking to people about how they feel about the con itself. We'll be there January 11th and 12th. So that's kind of exciting.
That's one of Rogers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Who else is going? Because
I mean, there's a big cast. I personally don't know all of them. You will know some of them.
Okay.
There's Emily Swallow. She's from Star Wars something.
Which Star Wars guy?
Dude, I don't know.
Does it just say Star Wars?
Johnny Young Bosch. No, if I clicked on her, it would tell me, but I'm not going to sit here and click on all these people. You can look it up later.
Okay.
Johnny Young Bosch. Dante Bosco. Dante Bosco is from
Avatar and a bunch of stuff, but
Pan, the Hook, the Robin Williams Hook movie. He was the skater looking lost boy who kind of led things when Peter Pan left.
Wow. It has been so long since I've seen that movie. I didn't know that.
I think this guy's name is Kari Payton. It may be Carrie. I think it's Kari Payton.
Cyborg from
He's
Teen
Cyborg.
Titans,
Yep.
and Aqualad from Young Justice.
Brian Drummond.
I think he was Aqualad. No, it wasn't Aqualad. Was he Aqualad? Now I'm confused.
Brian Drummond.
No, he wasn't Aqualad. Sorry.
I'm going to say it one last time. Brian Drummond.
No. I know. I heard you.
Moving on.
Who's Brian Drummond?
The red.
I know the name.
No, he's the red. What's the movie that's coming out shortly? Sonic. Who's the little red Sonic?
Knuckles?
I guess he's Knuckles. His picture's on here. Knuckles' picture is on here next to his face.
Is it?
And he's also
is it Sonic X?
He's also the
or the video?
He's also the demon guy from Death Note.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Ryuk. He's
Yes, Ryuk.
Brad Swaley.
So bad with names right now.
I believe he's not L. He's the other one.
Oh, Light?
Kira, Light. He's Light. Alessandro Giuliani, who is L from.
Yep.
Neil Kaplan. I don't know Neil Kaplan. Oh, I do. He's from Naruto. The one that wears the mask and has the eye. Uchiha, but not. He's the one. Oh my god, been so long.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the character.
Greg Baldwin.
Oh, Iroh's gonna be there?
Greg Baldwin's gonna be there. Blake Foster's gonna be there. Leah Clark is Toga.
Or the second Iroh, the second voice of Iroh. The first one was Mako, and he died.
Bryce Pinkham from, it looks like, what's the name of that show?
Hell of a Boss.
The hotel.
Let me see it.
The hotel show, Hell Hotel or whatever.
Has-Been Hotel.
Has-Been
but
Hotel.
Wait, does it show, what's the character look like?
A purple Satan with red eyes.
Is it? Oh.
Vanessa Marshall.
Oh, no, that should be Hell of a Boss, not Has-Been Hotel. But they're made by the same person.
Vanessa Marshall from some Star Wars show. She looks like the lead doctor or the head of the hospital from House, but she's not. But she plays some green character.
Oh, Hera Syndulla. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Scott Innes.
Scott Ines. He plays Shaggy and Scooby.
Interesting. Yep. Ron Simmons, who's a wrestler. Sam De La Rosa, Jeremy Clark. We're slowing this way down here, so I'm going to pick it up and move on. Jerry Bingham, who's an artist.
Yeah, going through names, it's actually bugging me.
Oh my gosh, it's so long. Anyway, so yeah, there's going to be some good people there. We're going to do that. But let's jump into what we actually wanted to talk about today, which was the Iron Man trilogy.
Yes, Iron Man.
The Iron Man trilogy. Oh. And what did you say to me? Dad, let's talk about the Iron Man trilogy and how the word doesn't hold up to other trilogies in the MCU. It doesn't. Explain yourself.
It's not as tightly knit as other trilogies in the MCU.
I'm not on board with you at all.
Okay. Let me explain, right? Because
I think it connects to the other movies better than any trilogy in
other movies.
The entire MCU.
No.
Yes.
No, that's not
100%.
That is not what I mean.
Okay, well, you said it's not as tightly knit.
Yeah, it's not as tightly knit as a trilogy.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about with Captain America, right? You have a very clear story of what's going on between the three movies. It is very much about Cap and Bucky for almost all three movies. And it's set up from Captain America, the First Avenger, and it's paid off in Civil War.
I'm going to give you a second to think through Iron Man real quick and make sure that you mean what you think you mean right now.
I do, because the first movie, Iron Man, right, it seems like they set up for the 10 Rings to be like a later villain for Iron Man, right? They don't come back until way later in Shang-Chi, right? And then
hold for a second.
Okay.
I'm going to challenge you right there. Before we even get into this, I'm going to challenge you right there. What do we know about Iron Man 1? Iron Man 1 was a test. Can we make movies and make money at them? There was no real vision there.
Well, there was.
No.
To a degree.
There was no real vision there. There was a throw-in of a post-credit scene with the hopes of getting fans excited enough to buy into the idea of a universe. But otherwise, Iron Man 1 was, we're putting something out there we think is awesome, and we hope fans give it a chance. But there was nothing ever like it ever done.
No, I know.
That's very different than Captain America, which leaned on the back of Iron Man 1.
What?
Without Iron Man 1, there is no Captain America,
Okay.
and literally nobody cares about it whatsoever.
That's not true. That's not true. Or people wouldn't debate to this day whether Cap should have gone back to Peggy or not.
No, nobody would have given Captain America a chance without Iron Man.
Okay, but you could say the same thing if Captain America ended up being the first movie. Like, if you could.
No, I don't think so.
Why? Because it wasn't relevant?
It wasn't. It was not as. It wasn't flashy enough.
I would say
It wasn't flashy enough. Iron Man had the suit.
Well, yeah, but also
and the creation of the suit.
Iron Man also, I will say, Iron Man also had the benefit of taking place in modern time at that time, where we were against Afghanistan, and
I'll grant you that.
Yeah.
It felt more relevant, but it was also more flashy and exciting than Captain America.
yeah.
I think they knew. They might have had a plan to make that Captain America movie at the time of Iron Man, but I think they knew if this is the first thing we put out, it's not exciting enough to drive the universe that we might want to create if this works. We need something more explosive, more flashy to drive it.
But when it comes to a sequel, Iron Man 2, I don't think follows up on Iron Man 1 very well. It kind of and not really. My problem with Iron Man 2 is it feels kind of like Rocky 2 in a sense. And Rocky's great because it's wrestling and he would fight different fighters.
It's wrestling.
Or not wrestling.
You're all. Oh my god! You're already like
boxing.
You're already
boxing.
shooting your Iron Man analogy in the foot here.
I'm sorry. I meant boxing.
Oh, you're killing me. I even walked you through the Rocky movies one at a time.
Oh my god!
Wow,
that was bad.
I'm a failure as a parent.
No, I just slipped.
I'm a failure as a parent.
I was thinking of The Rock for some reason. At the same time as thinking about Rocky, and so my brain flip flopped the two. Like I don't know why, but like maybe it's because I was kept up with some of the Moana stuff recently. But whatever. Anyway, back to what I was saying. If the Iron Man movies kind of feel like he fights a different villain, but they don't feel connected to his main story.
You couldn't be more wrong.
But like, okay, at the same time they are. Like so Ivan Vanko is connected to Tony Stark through his dad, but at the same time, the movie's so focused on Nick Fury Avengers stuff. I kind of wish it took up less of the movie because there's you have Iron Man getting drunk and like almost on the verge of dying. You have so many plot points going on. It feels like the Avengers stuff kind of overtakes the movie for a little bit. And I kind of wish that was dialed back so you could actually focus on some slower moments with Iron Man dealing that he's going to die.
I disagree with you 100%. I know that's no surprise. Anybody listening, this is only episode 2. You're going to figure out real quick that our disagreement is never a surprise. I know this is no surprise. But for me, when I look at your first, let's go back to what your statement was.
Yes.
Your statement was the Iron Man trilogy doesn't hold up to the other trilogies in the MCU. And I feel like the character development in Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 far surpasses the character development in Captain America 1, 2, and 3. It far surpasses the character development of Thor. And it far surpasses the character development of Guardians. And the only reason I'm letting Black Panther off the hook is because Chadwick Boseman died. And so
I'm going to pause you.
Hold on.
Okay.
I'm not done.
Fine.
And so Black Panther gets off the hook for not getting a trilogy at all and for losing their star after the first movie. So he was kind of developed in Civil War and Black Panther 1.
What about Guardians?
What about I said Guardians. The development is not there.
What?
The development's not there.
I think you need to watch those movies.
And we'll discuss those later. In the terms of character development, you can literally watch Tony progress from billionaire playboy only, not even really a philanthropist, if we're being honest. At the beginning of Iron Man, you can watch him become a superhero, recognize that being a playboy is not exactly the best thing. He falls in love with Pepper, but they don't let that relationship just take off in Iron Man 1 because he leaves her in the building, doesn't go get the drink he told her he was going to go get her. So then when he tries to flirt with her at the end and he's like, remember that? Do you ever think about that night? She's like, you mean that night you left me and didn't get me the drink and left me standing on the rooftop by myself? And so the relationship doesn't progress. So then in Iron Man 2, you see him kind of interested in Black Widow because he doesn't realize she's Black Widow. But over time, he recognizes, like, I'm going to die. And the one thing I have never had is a stable relationship. And the only stable relationship I have is Pepper. All the way to, I think it was Spider-Man Homecoming, where they get engaged.
You skipped so much.
But I'm saying you watch that relationship develop.
Yeah.
You watch him become a hero. You watch him, as Captain America said, you're not the guy who would jump on the grenade. I don't remember what the line was.
Lay down on the line.
Lay down on the line.
Let another man crawl over you.
Yes. You watch him become exactly that guy.
Or Wire. It was Wire.
Yeah. You watch him become exactly that guy. You watch him go from very quickly saving his own life, building the suit. You watch him do it so quick that he doesn't take into account how that's poisoning him. And then he starts to give up on his life until Nick Fury. Without Nick Fury, there is no saving him. Nick Fury saves his life.
But I was saying I think it overstays its welcome just a little bit too much.
But then you see him take precautions. He becomes overly cautious, too cautious.
See, okay, but this kind of negates something. Like, for instance, like Civil War is a complete regression of character. A little bit. Or maybe not a regression. I don't know if it was regression. No, it would be regression because he goes from taking full responsibility in Iron Man for something that he didn't even do. It was lack of oversight. And then he goes full on to shifting the blame to the entire team for something he did.
I don't see it that way.
I do. Because Age of Ultron was entirely his and Bruce's fault.
Yeah. And
yes.
he took responsibility for it.
And then shifted it over to the Avengers.
How?
By literally saying that we should all take responsibility for our actions involved in events like Sokovia.
That wasn't Age of Ultron.
That was Civil War. Said Civil War. I said Civil War first. I'm talking about in Civil War. He has regression by shifting the blame to Cap, to Scarlet Witch, to people.
Well, but no, because what he's talking to them about is when they blew up the building, which had nothing to do with Ultron.
Yeah, but it wasn't even that big of an incident. Like comparatively, they destroyed an entire city in Age of Ultron, and it was 95% Tony and Bruce's fault.
Yeah, and he took responsibility for that.
Yeah, but he also shifted the blame. He also shifted the blame for Cap. He let Cap take basically the Avengers take the blame for the Winter Soldier incident with the helicarriers, which he also was directly involved in by giving them repulsor technology to help those helicarriers fly, as well as developing the AI for that system.
But he didn't. That is not the same thing.
He still helped. Like even if it was negligence, it's still.
He didn't know that they were infiltrated by.
He didn't know that his
Hydra.
company was selling weapons to the other side. He didn't know that Hydra was using their technology, but he took the blame for one and then shifted the blame for the other. Like, they still see a problem with that. Like, he fully took the blame and then shut down the weapons industry, and then he shifts the blame over in a different movie. That, I feel like, it's a problematic thing for me. Also, he goes off and laments about how a 20-year-old got killed in Sokovia, and it was their fault, and then goes and hires a 14-year-old to fight in another battle. That makes so much sense.
Well, Who was the 20-year-old?
The 20-year-old is the child of the counselor that visits him at MIT and tells him,
Again, okay.
you killed my son.
So there's a difference between that 20-year-old and a Spider-Man
it's still
who has superpowers.
He's still a kid.
Who has superpowers that are better than Tony's suit.
He went out of his way to acknowledge that it was a 20-year-old, that the age mattered in this context, and then went for a younger person who was
he recognized that the kid was.
It's still putting someone's life in danger. Unnecessarily.
Against people he knew. I mean, ultimately, he knew Cap wasn't going to kill him.
And also, he's breaking the Sokovia Accords. The ones that he was enforcing on his team, he is breaking those by not revealing Peter's identity to the U.S. government, which he doesn't do.
Okay.
That's so
so let's first of all let's back way up here. First of all, this is not even a conversation about Civil War. This is not a conversation about Age of Ultron. This is a conversation about the Iron Man trilogy, and there is a ton of growth.
You brought up his character growth, and I'm telling you, within
there's
the
a
other
ton
movies,
of character
he has a
growth,
ton of character regression too.
No, he has character flaws. There's a difference between flaws and regression. Everybody has character flaws. You and I have character flaws. He has character flaws, but his growth is evident throughout the MCU. All the way to Endgame. All the way to Endgame. There's growth. Just because he has character flaws doesn't mean he doesn't have growth.
So the entirety of Civil War was a character flaw.
Absolutely. Pride has always been a character flaw for Tony Stark.
Not to a degree where he says that it's your fault and tells other people that
pride. That's called pride. Pride is a character flaw for Tony Stark. It always has been. 100%.
He has always taken the blame for stuff that wasn't necessarily fully his fault. Like he couldn't have known that his company was selling weapons underneath the table. Like that wasn't a part of his job.
Yes, it was. He's the CEO.
Okay, but the CFO was doing the selling without him knowing.
That's shame on him. That was his responsibility to know. He's the CEO. He's responsible for what the company is doing. His job is to know that.
True, but he can only know what he knows, and he didn't know.
Well, he figured it out.
And then he figured it out, and then he put a stop to it.
Right.
And then took the blame for it fully.
Because that's what a CEO does.
Right.
And that's growth.
So that's what he should have done with the Avengers.
He took responsibility for the Ultron bots.
And then said it was also
everyone else's fault. You see, this is, I think, where you're missing it. This is where I think you're missing it completely. That was actual character growth, and that character development, not necessarily growth, character development, because you're not taking into account the PTSD. You're not taking into account what he went through. So Avengers, he goes up into the wormhole. He comes down. He has PTSD in Iron Man 3. He can't even have a kid say, the kid says the word wormhole to him, and he starts having an anxiety attack.
Oh, no, that's perfect. That's great.
And that's character development. So how does he respond to that PTSD and anxiety? He tries to put a suit of armor around the world. That is a character flaw, but it's still character development. And you have to understand the difference between character development and character growth.
Iron Man 3, though, Iron Man 3 and Avengers Age of Ultron have the problem of following the same arc 2 times in a row. Where Iron Man 3, he learns to grow past that, destroys all of his suits, right? And you have the assumption that he's going to come back as Iron Man, but you wouldn't think that he would go out of his way to destroy the thing that he built for security purposes. And he built that entire house party protocol, by the way, to be basically what Ultron was in Age of Ultron. That's all that was, is the Iron Sentry at the beginning of Age of Ultron and then the Ultron Sentries. That was all the same thing. So he does all that. He destroys that house party protocol, and then goes immediately, not even maybe a year later, and does the same thing again, but then gives it AI that isn't Jarvis.
See, I think there's a very important phrase you missed in Iron Man 3 that makes it all make sense. Mm-hmm. He didn't say Jarvis, destroy the house party protocol. What did he say? So, I know specifically because I just watched it.
Wasn't it blow up the suits or something? I don't know.
No.
It's been a while. What was the quote?
Clean slate protocol. What does clean slate mean?
Oh.
It means wipe it out and start all over. Clean slate.
Yeah, but if it's a
So
clean
that's
slate,
exactly
then
what he
why-
did. He wiped it out and he started all over with new suits.
Right, and then
Clean slate protocol.
But then it still follows the problem that he did the same thing twice. He created another set of armors that weren't armors; they were sentries. He created a new set of sentries that then he gave he irresponsibly gave it AI.
Well, they all had AI to begin with.
Yeah, but Jarvis is different than Ultron.
But remember, he started with Jarvis trying to just assimilate what turned into Ultron. It wasn't that he gave them Ultron. He had Jarvis analyzing what was going on with that stone.
Mm-hmm.
It turned into what became Ultron.
He was working on Ultron, the Ultron AI.
But that was a mix of Jarvis looking into that stone and that stone overtaking Jarvis and kind of pushing him out.
I think we need to watch Age of Ultron again before I fully talk on that
Because Jarvis ends up talking to the AI.
Yeah, but it was Ultron after this. Like it was created from the stone using parts of Jarvis, sort of, but that wasn't. I don't know. I would have to rewatch it. It's been a while.
The whole point being, they already had AI. He thought he was giving them a better AI. And really, if I remember right, they weren't even trying to implement it into the sentries at the time. It just overtook Jarvis and then overtook the sentries and became Ultron.
I guess you can make the assumption that what ended up happening is that the Mind Stone gave Ultron sentience.
That's exactly what happened. And that was not his fault. His fault was putting it in a position to do that. And that was him and Bruce. They should have had better lockdowns and they didn't, which put it in a position to take over the Sentry program. But that wasn't that he just went in and put it in the Sentry program.
It's still his fault.
They should have had lockdowns for it. Absolutely. But not like in the way that you were discussing it a minute ago.
If Elon Musk did the same thing, it would still be entirely his fault.
It's his fault for different reasons than you were making it out to be, though.
No, it's still like I was saying it's his fault regardless. He's sitting there blaming other people though, instead of just taking the full blame.
He didn't blame anybody for that happening.
He literally ties the Avengers to that event like it was also their fault.
No.
Yes.
No.
He literally tells them to take responsibility for their actions, and then uses Ross use Sokovia.
You're taking one event from what Ross was talking about. Ross was talking about series of events.
Right. Okay.
He was talking about for the other Avengers.
And his listed events.
He was talking about for the other Avengers where they blew up the building and killed the people. When they're fighting Gorilla, he's not talking about Sokovia. I know, but he's not talking about Sokovia. For the other Avengers, that's his problem. But the other events have the other Avengers involved. They have to take
the events that they use, right, are Avengers, which is none of their fault. That was entirely Nick Fury's fault. And really, that
was actually Loki. There's nothing they could have done about that.
That Loki did take over Selvig and Thor, right? That was at the very end of Thor. He's like manipulating him, and that's how he finds out where the stone is through S.H.I.E.L.D. Because S.H.I.E.L.D. hires Selvig. Yeah, okay. So
there was nothing
they could do about that. But if they're gonna blame anyone, right, it was S.H.I.E.L.D. testing it, so S.H.I.E.L.D. would take the fault for that. But S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't a company anymore because they were dissolved after Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So no one can take the blame for that. But they're sitting there blaming the Avengers for something that they didn't directly cause in any way. And then Winter Soldier, the only parties involved in that were S.H.I.E.L.D., Iron Man, and Cap. And you can't really blame Cap because he was the one trying to stop the sentient helicopters from going around killing people at random, using a program.
You can't blame Tony for giving S.H.I.E.L.D. repulsor technology versus AI versus the fan blades that nearly killed him.
Repulsor technology and helped in the development of an AI system that targeted people at random that could possibly be potential threats to kill them.
I don't think they ever specified that was created by Tony.
I don't think it was created.
I don't think
it was
repulsors.
created, but I think he had it. There's no way he did
They never specified that he had anything to do
How
with
did they get that? Because it was...
There's lots of people working on AI. You realize there's like 50 AI companies right now.
Or wait, was it Tony or
with apps out there?
Hold on. Was it Tony or was that the other dude? The one from First Avenger turned himself to a robot that I can never remember his name. Because like he's got a weird name.
Yeah, Baron.
No, not Baron.
I know who you're talking
Not
about.
Zemo. It's the other one that usually works with Zemo, but they didn't pair him up with Zemo because they.
I do know who you're talking about.
Yes.
But either way, there's lots of people working on AI, and there's nothing that says that Tony had anything to do with that.
It was the computer guy because that's where they find out about it. Okay, it wasn't Tony. Okay,
Yeah,
but still, he still had a part to play.
No,
in it.
he didn't.
He in upgrading the helicarriers, he had a part to play in it because he saw the specs. He was part of that.
That doesn't.
And he was the only person.
You're making wild jumps and assumptions.
No, I'm saying that he's the only person around that can take the blame for it. Like,
there's no blame to be taken for making helicarriers fly. That's like going. Well, Boeing got a different jet engine to put on this plane, and so the person who made the jet engine knows that the cockpit had a computer in it. No, they just put the engines on.
Yeah,
literally all he did was change the engine to the helicarriers.
Okay,
that doesn't mean he did anything
if they were
else.
gonna blame anyone, they can't blame Shield because blame isn't.
There's no blame. It's not about
then it
blame.
shouldn't have been a listed event. Is my point.
No, it's a listed event because first of all, I see where you're going with this, and this is why you're totally off base.
I'm
hear me.
deconstructing these as arguments for the yes,
but incorrectly.
Okay,
but incorrectly. So let's go back to New York.
Mm.
He's not saying you're at fault for New York, but what he's saying is we need control over the people who we send out on these missions to stop these things. That was the purpose of the Sokovia Accords. Is
literally what the
stop.
Government did in Avengers because
Stop.
that's what they did.
Stop. So what he's saying is here's some events that you guys have participated in. New York,
Yeah.
DC, Sokovia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's some events that you guys participated in without any government telling you to participate in them.
Not true.
Without any government telling you to participate in them.
Not true. Avengers, the government literally told the Avengers to show up and do that.
No, they didn't. Shield did, which is outside the government.
They were subsidiary of the U.S. government, developed in World War II and after World War II.
And actually, they operate outside of that. I mean, they've been very clear about that with Nick Fury. He operates outside of the government
rules, but that doesn't mean that they're not a government
because they're run by
subsidiary.
a world government, which is what you see in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, or is it Civil War? Where they have all the different leaders from the world up there talking, and Black Widow goes in there with the mask on as that other woman.
It's still the government.
It's world government. It's not the United States government.
Okay, but
what he's saying. But hear me. But you're okay.
Okay,
But stop, because you're conflating something that's not there though.
No, I'm not, because
Yes,
the
you
world
are.
government is what the world governments were.
It
What
doesn't-
was
it
creating the
doesn't-
Sokovia
It doesn't
Accords.
matter.
Also, the Sokovia Accords.
Stop.
If you read into them,
Stop.
you're not letting me finish.
You're interrupting my point from the beginning, dude. Stop and let me finish.
Fine. What is your point?
He's saying we want a government that tells you to show up. We don't want you just going around the world doing whatever you think is right. The government should be telling you what to do is right. It's not about blaming you for New York. It's not about blaming you for DC. It is about blaming you for Sokovia because you created the robots that did that. But it's not about blaming you for these things.
Ross did that, though. I was saying Tony did that, and he did.
Please stop. Here's what I'm saying. He is saying we're trying to create a situation where we tell you where to go and you go.
Yes, I get that.
Okay.
I wasn't saying that Ross was a part of it. I was saying Tony was the one blaming everybody. and that he was shifting the blame. So that's not great for his character development.
It's not what was happening.
That
It's not.
literally did.
It's not.
Okay.
It's Tony saying we need to take responsibility by letting a government decide what we do. That's the side he fell on. And Captain America said, I don't trust the government, so I don't want the government to decide what we do. So that's where they fell. It wasn't about blame. It was about making sure that a government was making the decision of where they go to.
Well, I was going to say, even then, though, they, like, the world government was the one that the world governments were what created the Sokovia Accords. In fact, it was created in the UK. That's where they were signing it. On top of that, they were already being told by the world government where to go. Cap was part of S.H.I.E.L.D. during Winter Soldier, being told by the world governments where to go. That's why he had an argument for why that would be stupid. And then on top of that, the Sokovia Accords are, if you've read any of them listed in both the comics and from the MCU, are completely against the Constitution in a way where the U.S. would never allow that to happen. Would never even sign the accords, like not even consider
couple of things here. We're way off the point of this conversation. First of all,
true,
and number two, it was never about blame. Which you're talking about blame, but it was
talking
never
about blame from the perspective of Tony Stark.
But it was never about blame.
It was his side of it.
It was never about blame. It was about accepting controls so that they didn't put themselves in situations.
Yes, but in order for him to make that argument, he had to literally add everyone to the responsibility of all force and error. You literally he was basing his entire argument on both Sokovia and then partially on the event from the beginning of the movie. But that wasn't even Scarlet Witch's fault, because what was she supposed to do? Let everyone in the street die? Like, I don't.
The entire point was, if we allow ourselves to be controlled by a government on what we do, then we don't end up bearing the responsibility of what happens. That's Tony's side of things.
Right.
And Cap's side of things
is we should bear the
Cap's side of things was the government doesn't always have the best interest of the people in mind. So we can't just do what a government tells us to do, because if we do that, we end up fighting wars that we shouldn't be fighting.
Right. But in that same instance, you'd also be bearing responsibility for things that are your fault. And in that case, if they went out and did the same thing again, it still would be their fault in some ways. If something like, not Sokovia specifically, but Sokovia would be Iron Man's fault regardless. That entire incident would be Tony's fault. But if we're going to, use the beginning of the movie, if something like that happened again, it would be the team's fault regardless.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay, way off topic.
Yeah, it is.
At the end of the day, there was character development. You have to separate the word development from the word growth, because that does not mean the same thing. There's character development from Iron Man 1 to Iron Man 3 that is really unmatched in any other trilogy. In any other trilogy in the MCU, which you said.
No. Actually,
you said Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 doesn't measure up to the other trilogies.
I'd say Captain America has better character development, but only because he starts out as a man who just wants to join the war and goes completely with what the government's saying, almost to a fault, to being a person that goes against the government and takes on his own lead and becomes an actual captain that way. I don't know. I'm trying to word that better.
I see him as less developed.
What?
I see him as less developed. You watch Tony go through a growth from just somebody who didn't give a crap about the world to somebody who gave his life for the world. And you actually watch Cap go from, he always was kind of overly brave.
Yeah.
He was overly brave without the ability to do anything about it, to being able to do something about it, but he didn't really grow as a character. He grew his human form, but he stayed the same. Well, yeah, he was the same person throughout. He didn't really grow as a character.
He didn't need to grow as much as he needed. I think part of my problem actually is that his story should have been about learning to let go of the past
And he never did, because at the end of Endgame, he goes back to the past, so he didn't.
And I've always said that. Endgame has frustrated me because it feels like it takes his character development and throws it in the trash.
But that's my whole point. He never learns to let go of the past. Even in Civil War, you know, he ends up kissing his niece or whatever, granddaughter, whatever.
It wouldn't have been his niece at that point.
But it was. So
technically, but
so he never like really expressed feelings for her. He never dated her. They tried to push him on his other neighbor girl or whatever, or the girl in Shield, and he never was able to just walk away from the past. And that never happened all the way up to Endgame. His character never developed. And so I feel like Iron Man development from Iron Man 1 to Iron Man 3 is better. And then if you look at Thor,
oh God, don't even go there.
Thor 1 was good. I love Thor 1. Thor 2 became like it's like walking through a swamp.
I think you're missing what I was saying, because I think the films, you can watch Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War almost without watching the other movies. Iron Man, you can't watch Iron Man 3 without watching Avengers.
That's it.
Yeah, and you can't watch Iron Man 2 without...
You can't watch Captain America Civil War without watching Age of Ultron.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
The movie perfectly explains that movie.
No.
It does. It shows
it doesn't matter. You have to know what they went through.
To a degree.
You have to know what they went through. In that respect, the two trilogies are exactly the same. You have to watch at least one other movie to get them.
Civil War didn't fully rely on it because the main conflict by the end of the film, and this is what I mean by because I've always said this about Civil War. Civil War's ending feels like it was written first, and then everything else that leads to it feels like it was an afterthought or like something written after, because everything involving Tony, Cap, and the Winter Soldier is perfect. All of it. That entire ending is great. And actually, Black Panther's involvement in that story is pretty good too. All of that feels perfect. Even to the point where Panther looks at Zemo and is like, revenge is taking them, or revenge is taking you, or revenge is taking them. I won't let it consume me, or something like that. Yeah. All of that is great. The Spider-Man stuff feels like almost thrown in. Like it feels like it was a last minute addition, and doesn't feel as clean, partially because of the part where he's like, you know, we killed a 20-year-old in Sokovia, and then suddenly he's going hiring a 14-year-old to fight in another conflict that could get him killed. Doesn't mean that he will die, but it could get him killed. That part feels kind of like very that could have been cut from the movie, and the movie still would have made more sense. Which is why I don't think Spider-Man should have been in the film. But, you know, we wouldn't have some of the movies today without Spider-Man. But that's a completely different conversation. But everything else is Iron Man, Winter Soldier, Cap. That stuff feels perfect. Like the entire setup of you watching the Winter Soldier kill the driver of the car and you not knowing who it was until Tony sees the video, and then you see his face and you're just like, oh shit. Like, then you're like, oh my God, it was his parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole thing was set up perfectly. All of the Civil War stuff, the actual Civil War stuff, felt really like almost like Palpatine's plan in Star Wars, where it's like they say it was perfectly set up from the beginning, but then when you actually like start to look at some of the pieces, you're like, that doesn't really work. That kind of doesn't work. But the main conflict by the end of the film does work. It's just some of the stuff in there thrown in doesn't work. And so you can see where the cracks form.
Okay. But at the end of the day, the development on the trilogy, the development of the three, I don't feel like it. I feel like Iron Man holds up the character development in the trilogy better than the Captain America trilogy does. And all that Captain America Civil War does is build on Iron Man's character development.
It does,
and that's the thing.
I will say it will. It takes something that Iron Man introduced, which was his parents' death. You don't have no idea how that happened, but they don't really make a big deal of it. And then it takes that and then it expands on it in a way that you're like, I didn't think that could be done.
All that really did was build on his development, his character development. So I honest to God think that Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 hold up, and maybe hold up better than any other trilogy. Like I said, Thor was like walking. Thor 2 was like walking through a swamp trying to run. It was such a sludge. And then Thor 3, they revived it only to make Thor dumb. And Thor 4, they made him even campier and dumber. And so the character development just went downhill. And honestly, that's kind of what happened in Guardians 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, I can't agree with that, but I'll get into that in a second. I can't agree with Thor 3 reviving it. And that's partially because the movie does not know how to slow down.
I'm not talking about that.
No,
I'm talking about the character.
Yes, I am too.
Thor was good. Thor 2 was hard to watch.
I don't know how that's such. I don't know how
Thor 3 made him interesting again.
How?
It just made him a little more fun. And I get this is a place where you and I diverge because it's not comic accurate Thor.
It's not even just comic accurate. It's just that they put so much focus on the best scene in the movie. Honest to God, the best scene in the movie is the moment where Odin gets to reconnect with his sons for the last time. That's the best scene in the entire movie.
I mean, it's a great scene.
But
it's a great scene.
That's the problem. There's a lot of scenes where I'm like, okay, you just killed his friends. We didn't get a moment to just sit on that for a second. It just happens and you're on to the next thing. And like, I feel like that's where the movie doesn't understand Thor. He should be able to slow down and like feel, and he doesn't get to do that in that movie. He just jumps from action scene to action scene, and the only thing that he really like, and this is also my big problem because this leads into Thor: Love and Thunder, but he cares way too much about his goddamn hammer. The hammer and Odin. And Odin, I completely understand. Him caring about Odin that way makes sense. Him caring about his hammer being destroyed.
Well, so no, listen. So the hammer being destroyed in Ragnarok and him caring about that being destroyed makes sense because that was the thing that his father gave him. That to me makes sense.
Right.
Like if my dad gave me something and it was destroyed, that makes sense.
No, I get that.
The way that they make the hammer, they give it kind of human properties in Love and Thunder. They personify it, and it's awful what they did.
But that's my problem. It recontextualizes all of Ragnarok. Well, if you watch that, because now it's canon. That is canon, regardless of how you watch the movies now. So it recontextualizes all of Ragnarok, and it makes all the scenes where, like, Korg is making fun of Thor for quote unquote being in love with his hammer, and it makes it a real thing now. And that's so stupid. That pisses me off.
And that's what I'm saying. So that was terrible.
So
obviously Iron Man holds up over Thor.
But Guardians, I have to disagree. I mean, the only thing I can agree with is that Gamora was originally supposed to live. You can tell because he didn't know what to do with that and just wrote that in because he had to. But with Star-Lord, he reacts to everything perfectly, even in Infinity War, which James Gunn didn't have anything to do with other than being at the round table for discussion. He didn't write Infinity War, but he was a part of the discussion with the Russo brothers to keep it in line with what the movies were going to go for in a way. But in Volume 3, I mean, how else would you react to your dead girlfriend being alive and not knowing who you are? Like, that was perfect. Rocket taking over the team, I feel like was set up pretty well. Actually, Guardians 3 being set up in 1 was very well set up. 2 is a little shaky on the ego stuff. I think it needed a little more time with ego than we got. Just like a smidge more time. But by the end of the movie, when you realize when ego tells him that I killed your mom, again, like another moment where I'm like, oh my God, he literally goes through so much crap.
I know, but in the same way that you complain about Thor going from action scene to action scene to action scene,
Yeah,
the,
but
the way they handle all of the things that happen to Star-Lord, it's just too fast. It's too fast, and it doesn't develop
they
the character
literally
very well.
slow down on every moment.
No, the ego thing happens way too fast.
Well, okay, but there's also like way too many characters in that movie.
All of what happens with ego happens too fast.
But-
and then I get what you're saying, that James Gunn did the best he could with what he had given Endgame and Infinity War. He did the best that he could with Gamora. But there are other characters that got, in my opinion, dumber the same way Thor did. Mantis got dumber. Drax got dumber.
They were always dumb.
They were dumb. They got dumber.
They didn't get they just because even in the holiday special,
and the Groot thing.
Groot was great.
Look, Groot was great. Baby Groot was great.
Kaiju Groot was great.
Making him teenage Groot to me.
Well, that wasn't James Gunn though.
But he had to live with it regardless.
Yeah, he had to go on with that.
You know, the way that they handled Groot, I did not care for. The development of the Guardians team, bringing in Sean Gunn's character.
What? What's wrong with Sean Gunn?
I didn't care for that
I would say everything I loved.
I can't remember what his name
but
was.
like that's my favorite thing for that is that it pays off the end of 2. Like everything involving Yondu.
Yondu was the best. Honestly, Yondu and Star-Lord's relationship was the best part of Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's what makes up for the ego stuff, in my opinion, is because they pay it off by having the Yondu funeral. He gets the
problem is no other character, in my opinion, except Rocket. Rocket and Star-Lord get development, and I think that they kind of messed up Star-Lord with ego.
I think,
but Rocket and Star-Lord get development, and that's pretty much it. Everybody else, I think they did a disservice to.
So I think my problem with
even Nebula, to a degree, they did disservice to.
Well, I think it hurt. Infinity War and Endgame kind of hurt them because Drax's whole story revolves around him killing Thanos.
Yeah,
and he didn't succeed.
Had literally nothing to do with it.
Yeah, like he number one didn't succeed, and then on top of that, he doesn't seem to really care or deal with it. So that is a problem. But I don't think, again, that's not really James Gunn's fault as much as like, what was he supposed to do? Because now that Iron Man killed Thanos, and it was already set up that Thanos and Iron Man were gonna be probably the 2 characters that would be against each other in those 2 movies. What do you do with Drax now? Because Drax is kind of like...
Well, Drax was never going to kill Thanos.
No,
he never had the ability.
No, but like you didn't even really give him a chance. Like the Russo brothers really didn't give Drax a chance to do anything to Thanos.
And maybe that's part of why he decided to exit the MCU without dying.
And
but at the end of the day...
Oh, Mantis that didn't really bug me because she was more of the comedy relief character.
And I thought she was much better in... Was it Infinity War?
She was great in...
She was great in Infinity War, where she was kind of smart.
Well,
like she tried to put Thanos to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, she acted intelligently. And then she's just ignorant.
Well, no, she's emotionally intelligent. That's one of her main goals, and that's one of the things that she does with Peter a lot in Volume 3. Like she's the whole reason that Peter goes to see his grandfather. Like if she didn't bring that up early in the film and go like, well, why didn't you go see you're talking about all these people that died. Why don't you go see the one person that isn't dead in your family that you abandoned and haven't gone back to?
Yeah. Nevertheless,
like
I don't think
she plays she plays an important role, but she plays it in a softer way than most other characters, and she didn't need development.
I don't think she's developed well, and part of that I think is because you can't develop a whole team. You got too many people there to develop stories for when it comes to Guardians. And so I say that to say, I'm not saying they were bad movies, but when you make the statement to me, Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 don't hold up against the other trilogies, I think for the sake of development of Tony Stark, they absolutely hold up because the other characters outside of Star-Lord and outside of Rocket, the other characters don't get the development they deserve.
Well, I would say that Rocket, Star-Lord, and Well, I would say Rocket and Starlord are probably the main characters of Guardians, if we're being honest. Like the whole trilogy ends with Rocket leading the Guardians.
Nevertheless,
Whereas
I don't
Iron Man 3 doesn't feel like an ending to a trilogy.
because it isn't.
I know. And I'm saying it feels like they needed another movie. And I kind of feel like I feel like 3's biggest problem isn't paying off Iron Man 1 by using the 10 rings. Like actually using the Mandarin.
I will grant you this. I will grant you this.
Like that would have tied it neatly.
The 10 Rings was a disgusting portrayal. And I think they fixed it with Shang-Chi.
Oh, well, hold on.
I think they fixed it with Shang-Chi without Iron Man, but I think using the 10 rings in Iron Man and not having the actual Mandarin attached to them, that was awful.
Well,
that was a terrible
I think
mistake.
I think they originally planned to, but I think that because you also gotta remember Shane Black took over on Iron Man 3.
I know.
And I think he had a different vision for it than what was originally set up.
Yeah, well, what he did was a terrible travesty to the Mandarin.
Yeah, well,
and I think the minute he did that the Marvel brass was like, crap, how are we going to fix this? And it took them coming up with Shang-Chi, the movie, to fix it. Because I think they were like, the fans, any fan, I'm not even a comic book fan, but I had watched the cartoon Iron Man where they go after the rings.
The 10 rings, yep.
And I was like, what is this with the Mandarin? This is stupid.
Yeah, it was.
I think it was awful.
It was a dumb decision.
Armored Adventures was a great cartoon, by the way.
Which they did end up also forming the Avengers by that. And actually, I like the Avengers. Tangent, but I like the Avengers roster of that because it was Black Panther, Hawkeye, Widow, Iron Man, War Machine, Pepper as Rescue. Yeah, Rescue and Hulk by the end of the show. And I don't. And like Magneto made an appearance in that show too, which is so cool. Anyway, but that was a tangent. That was cool. But anyway, yeah, Iron Man 3's biggest problem is not using the 10 rings in the movie.
That 100%. Bringing the fake Mandarin was the worst thing about Iron Man 3, but nevertheless, Iron Man 3, as far as the character development, was amazing.
Yeah, I guess if you focus on Tony's...
There's two things I think that the MCU has done 100% right.
Yeah.
One is handling Tony's PTSD. Portraying the anxiety attacks and the PTSD, I think, was handled right.
Oh yeah, especially in Infinity War, where his tone completely shifts once Bruce brings up Thanos and tells him who he is.
And then how they handled Black Widow, or not Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, the way that they handled her. What's the word I'm looking for? I just blanked. Grief. The way that they handled her grief, I think there is no. They got that right. There was no better way to handle her grief. They got it
right.
I think some people handle grief better than she handles it, but I think their portrayal was a very fair portrayal of how to of how some people handle grief.
No, that's fine, and I do agree. But the thing is that they would have handled it the same way in the original script. I had no problem with the way they handled it. I had the problem with making her the villain.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not saying yes or no the movie was a great movie or it could have been a better movie. What I'm saying is the way they handled her grief, the way they displayed her grief on screen. I don't think anybody could have done a better job showing grief on screen. I mean, it's beautiful. It really is.
It is.
And so those are two things I think they got right, and honestly, why I feel like the Iron Man trilogy holds up, because I think that the development of him from happy-go-lucky playboy to PTSD hero who still has anxiety attacks and understands the greater implications of what he's experienced from Iron Man 3. Let's leave everything past Iron Man 3 out.
Well,
the greater implications of what's coming by Iron Man 3, I think that the development there makes that series hold up.
Yeah. I still also, I think my other issue is that Avengers had to come out, and that the threat, even if it wasn't the real Mandarin, the threat was so big. Why wasn't anybody there?
I think that, okay. So I think that is a problem across
the
MCU.
Yeah.
That's no different than the Winter Soldier. Why wouldn't you call Tony?
Yeah, he developed parts of the helicarrier and he's not there.
He's not there to help shut down the helicarrier.
Right, after realizing that
he's also the most computer genius person you know, and you didn't get him to help hack that stuff.
Right, after finding out that it's an AI that selectively chooses people that might be a threat, you don't call the person that developed an AI that
and literally the guy who walked on literally the guy who walked on the helicarrier last time and hacked the whole thing while everybody was having a conversation. Yeah, I just hacked all of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know all of their dirty secrets.
Right.
And yet you didn't call him to help you with this one.
Like, I get why Thor and Hulk aren't there. They don't have to, because Thor can just be across the galaxy doing whatever. And Hulk can be hiding because he just really does not like the idea of the government turning on him one
or
day.
of being Hulk. He doesn't even like being Hulk.
He doesn't even like being Hulk. No, at that time, he didn't even like being Hulk. So, that makes sense. But Iron Man not being someone that you call to deal with something like that is insane to me. The Avengers just not even being involved in the Mandarin is such a weird thing with me. I mean, obviously it didn't end up being the real Mandarin, but he literally shot someone on screen.
He had the vice president.
Yeah,
he had the president strung up on an oil tanker, and the Avengers didn't come to help.
Yeah, right. Like
Steve Rogers wasn't running for the president.
Didn't go, wait, whoa.
Yeah. No. That's 100% right. But that is a problem across the MCU. Is
I think
we got into this idea that a solo movie is a solo movie and we can't have crossovers. Yeah. And it got a little bit better with Spider-Man Homecoming when they brought Tony in just as a crossover. It got better with Civil War where everybody was there.
Thor Ragnarok also, I think that was one of the things that did work, was that they kind of took some elements of Planet Hulk and utilized it in a way that worked.
Having Hulk on there with Thor was a smart thing. Being able to have other people in movies is a smart thing.
Oh, Doctor Strange's appearances across movies also is genius. Although No Way Home fumbled his character just a little bit. In the sense that I don't think Spider-Man winning that particular fight made a lot of sense. I also don't think that Strange would just literally alter reality for Peter the first time.
Well, Wong talked him into it. He didn't just do it.
No, actually Wong tried to talk him out of it.
No. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Wong was talking him out of it, which automatically sets Strange to do it. Because he's like, oh, wait, here's Wong telling me don't. Maybe I should.
Yeah,
just to stick it in Wong's face, which I don't know if that's comic accurate, but that is kind of their relationship. That is kind of their relationship in the MCU, even if it's not comic accurate, is, now that Wong is the Sorcerer Supreme, then Strange is like, okay, I'm going to do the opposite of you. Just
another dumb change.
Yeah.
I hated that.
And listen, I don't want to get into that today. This was an Iron Man discussion.
It was.
And it's been fun.
This is not to say that I don't like the Iron Man films, by the way. This just meant like in the sense that Iron Man as a trilogy, as a full trilogy written to be paid off as a trilogy, does not hold up compared to Civil War, which is meant to be, feels like it was meant to be written as a trilogy, even though the first movie had a completely different director.
Well, we'll just have to continue to agree to disagree.
I mean, that's fair.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you heard today, there's going to be a whole lot more of it. Obviously, we don't agree on everything, and we're going to argue and interrupt, and we still have a good time and still love each other here. But if you like what you heard, go ahead and like, share, subscribe, click that bell. Make sure that you know when the next episodes come out. We're excited to do this, and we're excited to have you as a part of it. And look forward to the next episode. With that, we're out.